What's up everybody? Welcome back to Make It Custom. I'm Carl Fisher and today we're going to learn about bead rolling. I had a lot of questions about how I've done the scale pattern on the brass bead rolling on my door panels. This is 040 aluminum. This is, I think it's 040 brass as well. Brass kind of rolls the same way as aluminum. So for our purposes today, because brass is very expensive, we're just going to do it on aluminum. So I'm going to show you two different ways. The quilted pattern, which is very popular. I love it. I use it a lot. This is, like a diamond tufted look, similar to what, old school interiors would be like. And then we've got our scale pattern. So that's what you're gonna learn today on Make It Custom. Let's get to it. All right, so I got two pieces of 040 aluminum here. This is gonna be our mock door panel. Pretty much what I have in my truck right now. What we're gonna do is lay everything out. I'm gonna do a scale pattern on one. I'm gonna do a diamond pattern on the other. And we're really only gonna use a couple of dies on the bead roller to make this happen. So I'm just gonna get started on the layout right now. This is a layout tool. It's a Mittler Brothers Jamie Jordan series. I got a little set from a friend. So I like to use them for my radiuses, and they also work great for the scales. So I'm gonna lay out a border first on both panels. I'll probably do a larger lower portion for my diamond and scale pattern, and then just a stepped upper portion to kind of make it look like how I do most of my door handles. So let's get started.
You mean door panels?
Panels.
You said panels.
I said panels. Kind of make it look like how I do most of my door handles.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Okay, so when I like to lay out diamonds, the best way to do it is to choose the beginning and the stop point. Like, you can't just take one pattern from one diamond setup and put it onto here, because it's not gonna line up perfect. Kind of want the end of the diamond to peak at the end of your panel. So I've got a large panel here and a large panel here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make marks that are evenly spaced all across the bottom, make marks that are evenly spaced across the top, and then just choose my crossover. Is it gonna be, 1, 2, 3 over? And then just keep that the whole way down, and the reverse on the other side. Same thing with the scale is I'll just choose the shape of the scale, like what radius of scale do I want to use, and then I'll evenly space them all the way along, and then just go from the center of one scale to the next, to the next, to the next, and that's how we're going to get that pattern laid out. 21. So we got 10.5 is our center. Let's do a 2-inch spacing. You definitely don't want to go with a 45-degree angle when you're doing a diamond, because you'll end up with just squares on an angle. Diamonds are a little longer than they are tall, so you want to have that at a little bit sharper of an angle. So I think I'm going to skip over 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 4 should look good. Could have made these diamonds bigger. It's going to take forever. Okay, one and done. Number 2, so now you can kind of see what I meant by the whole diamond thing. These points all finish right at the top of the panel. It always kind of looks weird if the diamond doesn't quite make it, or if it's kind of cut off. I always want to lay it out where it's at the top of the panel. All right, let's get onto these scales. I don't actually remember how I laid them out last time with the truck, but we'll figure it out. How do we do that? Measure size of scale we're gonna do. Make them go this way. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is make myself some center lines to keep these scales straight. It's really easy to kind of go off course. It might look like you're going from the center of the scale to the center of the scale, but having the extra lines, I think, are gonna make sure that we don't mess this up. the center line. All right, so we're all laid out now, and we're basically only gonna do one die change on the machine. What I'm gonna use is a sharp tipping die with the soft poly lower wheel. Some guys use a skateboard. I bought a kit from Eastwood. It's the forming die kit. It came with tipping dies and some other ones, but I mostly use the poly lower wheel and a sharpened tipping die. I actually sharpened the one that came in the kit to a dull sharpness. You don't want to cut the metal or anything, but we're gonna press the sharp line on all of our Sharpie lines, and that lower die, because it's squishy, it's gonna puff up around our sharp line. We're gonna do this first. You're gonna actually see when I'm doing this, I'm going along all these lines, the panel's gonna turn like this. The reason why we're gonna do that first before we go around these, some guys might say you would wanna step your edges first to give stiffness to the panel so that you don't warp it when you do your quilting. What I like to do is I like to do the quilting first so that I can bend the panel back, and you'll see when I use my knee and kind of bend back the shape that happens into here when we're using that tipping wheel and making these diamonds. When I bend the shape back, it actually puffs it up quite a bit, and it's nice because the panel is semi-relaxed after I've bent it all back. Then I want to lock that in with my step wheel around the outside. That's the way I do it. Other guys do it different ways. We're going to use that same step wheel to make our scales. So basically I'm going to do this first, that center piece. We're going to go switch the dies to the step up dies. We're going to go around our borders. That one will be done. And then we're going to do all of our scales, keep the panel as flat as we can, and then we'll step around the borders of the scale panel. Let's go to the bead roller. I'm just going to make sure that every time I put my wheel down onto this, as soon as it touches, I realize where my hand is on this adjuster, and then I count my turns after that. You want to make sure you do that so that you have consistency in all of the beads. So right now, I'm going to tighten my wheel just till it touches the panel, just right there. That's where it's sitting. So I'm going to go once and twice, and I'll probably go 3 times to make it extra poofy. We like the poofy. Ooh. I broke one of my own rules just now. Here's another tip. Okay. See how this panel already made that tip up? If I start on this side and work my way in, what's going to happen here? It's going to tip up and it's going to get all jammed up in here. I normally would start out this way so that as this curls, it's away from the bead roller. These ones we haven't done yet, so they're going to stay flat underneath there. We don't have a lot of space. So you're going to have to watch that so you don't scratch up your panel. Okay, so it touched right there. Once, twice, thrice. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about the bends. This looks terrifying, right? It terrified me the first time I tried this too. But this is all part of it. It's not ruining the panel. This is the puff I'm talking about. What I like to do, you can see on the back side, these are all of our creases. And then when we start to bend it, it really puffs it up. It looks like upholstery. So I just put it on my knee, and just kind of give it the old reverse, roll it across my knee a little bit. Get some of that puff into it. Yeah, we're getting pretty close. What we want. Yeah, so we're back to pretty much flat. It's gonna fit underneath there so that we can go across the other way. Once again, we're gonna start here and work our way out, because once again, panel's gonna get all warpy and we're gonna have to put our knee into it. One other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna protect the bottom of this with a little bit of tape so that I don't mark up my panel. Okay, I think we're ready. Exact same thing going this way, so we might as well speed it up a bit. Go. Okay, so once again, we got our big wave of a warp. It just needs a little massaging. Nothing to worry about. Kind of rub it over my leg, helps get the pop in the panel. This is where you might want to spend a little bit of time getting it as good as you can, because really that's what it's going to be once we lock it in with our step roll. If you really look up close to that, you can see the beautiful puff. It looks like upholstery. It's like old boogie van stuff. Diamond tuft interiors, the 1960s. Big mustaches and long front ends on your motorcycle. So that's pretty good. We're gonna change the dies now to our step dies so we can step the outside of this. And then we're also gonna use the step dies for the scale panel. And if you haven't seen the other videos, this is my homemade bead roller. I built it for really, really cheap, probably less than 50 bucks. Obviously the dies cost money, but the bead roller really didn't cost that much. Used the garage sale motor on the back, bunch of Princess Auto industrial sprockets and chain to gear it down. Probably would be nice to have a fancy bead roller one day though, but this thing does a trick. You don't need special stuff to make it happen. You can make it custom. Now I gotta think, because I gotta pop it up a certain way. That's the top of my panel. I want to step these up. So my dies are going to want to be like this. This way, my panel will step up. If I did them the other way, it would step down. The other thing I'll say about step dies is that the bigger the step, the more the warp. I've tried it before where I try to do a step where it's kind of like a shallow but long step like this, where it kind of comes up like that. It seems like the metal doesn't want to stretch as much that way. It just wants to add a bunch of tension and pull, so it gets all kind of wonky. I kind of like the simple, crisp steps too, like on mine here. This is a little step in my eyes, like a little bit of a step. When you do little steps like this, it looks really good. I like the style of it, but these warp less than when your dies are further apart and you make that step bigger. This type of a step warps much less when it's a little bit tighter. So that's what we're gonna do. Keep the dies kind of close to each other, and that's what makes the step a little bit shallower. Maybe about there. All right. Some people like to run over their beads twice when they do this. Me personally, on this thin of material, I just one and done. That's it. I mean, if I'm working on something a little bit thicker, you might want to go a little bit gradually. But for this one, I'm touching right about there. Once, twice. I think that'll be good. 2 times around. Yeah, it's perfect. It's gonna be nice and smooth on the corners. Try not to be jerky. If you fall off your line, try and get it back nice and smoothly. Don't just jerk it back because you'll see that. I've also kind of had to learn to be smooth because my bead roller doesn't slow down. Doesn't slow down for nobody. When I'm rolling, I try and look as low as I can, and I find it a little bit easier to line up my line with the line of the die. When you're looking up top, it's kind of too easy to steer your way around it and mess it up. I've messed up a few times before, and when you're this far into a panel, if you mess it up, you go home crying. This is where I started right here. I'm gonna bring it around, and I'm gonna run past it a little bit just to try and smooth out the place that I started. Yep, I'm back to where I started. Just kind of run it out a little bit, and there it is. I'm just gonna show you the back side real quick. You can see our step there. You can see how much puff is happening in the panel and how it's kind of locked it in now, and we're staying relatively flat. So I'm gonna step up this spot just for whatever. These panels aren't really for anything. I didn't have, you know, a Model A door or anything to make panels for, so we got 1, 2. Sometimes if I think of it, I'll start rolling it through before I finish my crank. And the reason I do that is I find that sometimes you get a little bit of a kink right at the start if you go right down right in one spot. And because I run through it again, you can kind of start it gradually. It almost hides the start-stop of the bead roller. Another reason why we're trying to puff these panels out, not only does it lend itself nice to this design because we're puffing up those diamonds. Typically, when you're making a panel, the outer border is going to be where you're going to mount it. And that mounting surface is usually flat. So if you were to puff these inward, it would push against your mounting surface and the panel would install a little bit warped, if that makes any sense. Okay, we're coming back to our starting point. Run it past a couple inches, try and smooth out that start. And if you let off while you're rolling, once again, makes it a little bit smoother. I'll show you on the back side. This is where our start-stop was. You can see a little bit there, but it's pretty much invisible where we started and stopped. The back side looks that good. Wait till we peel it off. Okay, let's do scales next. Here's the scales. I'm gonna step them just like I did on my truck. If you look again, you can tell that these were made with a step die. That's all it is. If you decide to do a pattern like scales, you'll get really good at doing circles really fast. So I am puffing them up. I should do them this way. Yes. It's always important to know which way the dies are sitting, because once again here, on this scale, if I were to push down on my line and push up on the inside, that's what I want. But if I were to push up here and down here from underneath, it would be too big of a pattern and it would overlap into my design. So you got to make sure that you know which way you're rolling. Okay, so touch down, 1, 2, and just gonna go for it. Okay, that's 1 out of 40 or 50. Actually, I modified this die as well. I might as well show you. See, I knocked this edge off. You can see that I knocked that edge off so that we were a little bit sharp. I did that when I did my door panels, and the reason why is right here. We just finished this one. We're about to start this one here. And when I bring my die in there, and I want to get as close as I can to my mark, if it was flat, which when I bought it, it was flat all the way, it would have pinched onto my previous scale. So sometimes the dies need a little modification to do exactly what you want. Glad that's over. Okay, see, this type of a pattern doesn't quite screw itself up as much as the diamonds do, all being in a straight line. We've got a little bit of pop. That's to be expected whenever you're putting a bunch of tension into a panel. That one has a little bit of it too, but once you mount it, that's mostly gone. We're just gonna do our borders now. Same thing as the other panel, and then we get to go for the peel. Run it past a little, loosen it off. Okay, just gonna do this one now. Touch down, 1, 2. Okay, I think we did pretty good. We are gonna have a scratch on this panel. This isn't premium material that I'm using for demonstration today. This is stuff that I would not have used for a customer car or something that I was keeping, because there is gonna be a bit of a scratch there, but it's all gonna be shiny under there. I'm gonna get Christina to give me a hand doing a little bit of a peel. All right, well, there you got it. Scale pattern, quilted pattern. These panels are 040 aluminum, if you forgot when I said earlier. Thanks very much for watching Make It Kustom, everybody. Don't forget to like, hit subscribe, click notifications, tell your friends. We're trying to do this twice a week. Everybody have a great day.